Hello, everyone. I am your co-host, Tony Borrego,
And I'm your other co-host, Rico Borrego.
and this is the podcast known as Relatively Sound, that podcast that don't want to go cold turkey. Now, today, Rico gets the honor of telling me his thoughts and maybe concerns about Mark Lanegan's album, Bubblegum. For those of you who have been watching the podcast, I had introduced Rico to his first Lanegan album with Phantom Radio, the first full studio album of his that I heard. We talked about our kind of history with Mark before in the Phantom Radio episode. We really like what he does with Queens of the Stone Age, and yeah, this is his most commercially successful record. It's got a lot of the Queens of the Stone Age kind of desert rock musicians on it. I think it's got some great bangers, and I don't really have much more to say to set this up. Rico, do you have anything you would like to add?
No, other than this album, I think gave me a better understanding of what I think of Mark as a musician and songwriter and vocalist.
Yeah, that's fair. Also, for those who've been watching the podcast, I do a really bad job of picking first albums to give people. I think the pressure of picking the right album just throws me off, and I always pick something that is probably the wrong move. I've been getting better, though. I've been getting better at it. But I don't think Phantom Radio was an awful start. I don't think it is.
No,
I should have started with Bubblegum.
Well, to be fair, I think maybe you thought that some of the more maybe electronic sounds on Phantom Radio would be more up my alley, or just maybe you thought they would be more interesting to me. And maybe that's because you knew that the Mark Lanegan songs that I knew of before were the ones that he wrote and played with Queens of the Stone Age. I know some of the songs that he sang with Mad Season, and I do know like the One Big Screaming Tree songs. I did know I have listened to his covers album before because
Imitations.
I had got it from the library in Everett. And that's kind of when that wasn't even before I think we got into the Queens of the Stone Age, but I didn't know at the time it was a covers album, and the only really song I remember from it is the opening track,
Flatlands,
which is like the one song on that album that's like it's a cover, but it's not of an older cover song. It's by like a more recent artist named Chelsea Wolfe.
which I have been meaning to listen to your music because I love that song, including her version.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's also how I kind of got into Andy Williams, because I really liked his cover of Solitaire, and then I was like, oh shit, Andy Williams is awesome.
Yeah, but and that's not even. I don't think that's not even that. I mean, yeah, he wrote that song, but I think the more popular version of that song is the what's that guy's name? Neil Sudeikis.
Oh, okay. I think that is his name.
Yeah,
I've heard of him.
I know that's someone that Ben Folds has covered before in the past. But yeah, so and I will admit, and it's not just with the Phantom Radio with Mark's album, but I have not been always great of going back and listening to every album you've given me before on this podcast, like after the episode is aired. Obviously, some of them for sure. All the ones that I've bought on vinyl, like Incubus's Light Grenades.
And last week's purchase.
Yeah, I purchased because Tony found a listing of it online, was Elliott Smith's From a Basement on a Hill, which out of the two Elliott Smith albums you've given me, I still think actually that's the one I prefer.
See, that shocks me.
But here's the thing. I think it has higher highs, but I do think as an album, because it came out after he passed away, I don't think it was shaped to be the perfect album it could have been. So I still think XO maybe is a more solid album all the way through. I still think maybe my favorite though out of those two, and then the one I knew before, Either Or. I think Either Or still might be my favorite.
Ooh.
But I know that's like the normal
Basic answer.
Oh well. But
yeah.
Getting back to Mark, I have not listened to Phantom Radio back as much as I should. And that goes for some other albums you've given me, like Tom Waits or even the Zombies
I
and
did drop the ball
whatnot.
on the Tom Waits pick.
And I
Um,
don't think so, and I don't think that needs to be a huge just a discussion point because I don't think you give me bad first album choices. It's hard because so a lot of these artists we've given each other are artists and bands that you and I are actually familiar with, whether it's like a song here or there or a whole album's worth, So you know, there's only been a couple artists where we went in completely blind, like me with the Softies and like you with like
Jason
probably
Isbell.
yeah, or Phoebe Bridgers. So,
Yeah.
um, and these next couple months, I think, I mean, obviously, I gave you Wildflowers from Tom Petty last month, which obviously you've heard Hard Promises on the podcast, and you gave me, what did you give me last month? Um, why am I blanking on
I know. I was thinking about this yesterday. I was
what
like, what?
album did you give me last month?
I
Oh,
feel like I only remember your picks and not mine.
it was Steely Dan.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was not quite blind because like I knew like two of the songs, but um my point being like this next couple of months we might give each other again more artists that we've covered on the podcast before, but trust me, we definitely want to give each other some unexplored territory, and we're going to. But
So one quick thing.
yeah,
I think in hindsight, I think part of why I gave you Phantom Radio over Bubblegum, which is kind of like what you said. I thought maybe some of the like the more modern electronic sounds would be something that you might be more interested in those aspects than some of the more industrial aspects of Bubblegum. And it's not an industrial record, don't get me wrong, but I hope you can kind of see what I mean on some of the heavier tracks.
yeah, and I will get to that because the word industrial does pop up like once in my notes.
Oh, okay. Good
Um,
start. We're on the same
here's
page.
here's what I'm going to say first. Like overall, I'm going to talk about what I feel about Mark now that I've heard two of his albums. And we should say Bubblegum is his like sixth studio album,
2004, is that the release?
2004,
Yeah.
and it has a ton of like guest people on it. You got PJ Harvey, who someone we might need to listen to on the podcast in the future on a
I
couple
do want to get
songs,
into her.
vocals. We have Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age. We have Nick Oliveri from Queens of the Stone Age. Greg Dooley from Afghan Wigs. Duff McKagan and Izzy Stradlin from Guns N' Roses. You have Mark Lanegan's ex-wife on here, and then a couple other, not even a couple, like a ton of other people who we don't really maybe know by name, but yeah, like the list of people on this album is like well over 20. So
And to clarify, the biggest credits are like for Josh Homme, who does like bass, drums, guitar on a lot of songs. Same with the Alan Johannes guy.
yeah, he's also like a producer too.
Right,
Like,
I forget about that. Yeah.
and it should be noted too that this is technically the Mark Lanegan Band on this album.
Yeah.
Good
catch.
And maybe that's because he's got so many guest appearances.
So is he credited for instrumentation? He's credited for guitar
just guitar on song
Bomb.
6, Bomb. Yeah. Which is like
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We'll get into
that. You also have Joey Castillo, who ended up being the Queens of the Stone Age drummer during, I think, the Vulgaris era. The
the era Vulgaris era. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just on one song, but still cool.
Yeah. There's a lot of people here where you might look at the names and go, oh, I recognize that name. So, but Mike, I want to make a couple comments about Mark overall first before we get into the album. He is an artist that I think now that I've heard two albums from him, and I know this one being probably a lot of people's like in their top 3 of his, just when you talk about his solo career, I think he's an artist that I maybe appreciate more than I love. And I say that because when I listen to both albums, I don't have much complaints. Like, I think maybe my biggest complaint is him as a lyricist, where I feel like the songs sometimes just have too many of the same recurring themes, which a lot of it is dark. And I do definitely need to read his, I know he has like maybe now 2 autobiographies.
Oh, he has 2?
Maybe he just has one. Maybe he just has one. But I know the Sleep Backwards one. Is on my to read list for sure.
Sing Backwards and Weep.
That's the one, yeah. Um, that one I definitely need to read because I definitely think he's had like a troubled life, and unfortunately, he's passed away since, and you know, it's between like drug addiction and maybe battling mental illness. A lot of that comes out in the songs lyrically,
And
and
I admit I dropped the ball. I should have read that chapter prior to this episode, or that point in the book. I have not finished the book. I don't know why I haven't, but anyways, my interjection's done.
no, no, but yeah, it's true. It's so like as a lyricist, I think maybe that's a little bit where I get hung up on. Um, I also say too, like musically, and most of what I hear on both albums, and again, like other songs of his that I know, I enjoy, but it's sometimes just a little too much of the same. And I do think his approach to his songs are slightly different than like when I before I we you gave me Phantom Radio. I thought he was going to go one direction and he goes in other directions than I originally thought, which is good. But I'm actually a little surprised how much you like him. And this is a question I did want to, pose to you is like I'm a little shocked like that you like this album and even Phantom Radio as much as you do because I do feel like with a lot of the songs they kind of go in a loop or like in a progression that kind of stays the same. And sometimes the song builds, and every now and then there will be like a bridge. But I'm just a little surprised that because I feel like that's something that I would listen to, and then you would say, "Oh, I'm shocked that you like that." Because it's like it's not necessarily simple songwriting like you might say when I listen to some Tom Petty songs or some Bruce Springsteen songs, but it's it's a lot more like kind of loop heavy and not quite jam heavy, but I don't know, like a lot of the songs like have some, repetition that I'm shocked you enjoy as much because especially as the years have gone on, you seem like you're getting into more progressive music or just music that has subgenres that maybe you and I haven't listened to before in the past. So yeah, I'm a little I guess I want to know really quick before we dive into the album why you like him so much. And I will say too, like I think his voice is very unique, and I think that's maybe to me his selling point and what I like about him the most. And again, I think maybe his voice too fits his lyrics so much, so maybe like that's just kind of they go together so well, like bread and butter. But um, like even his voice, I feel like sometimes there's moments on the album where his voice does some different things, and I really appreciate those moments more than some of the more typical Mark Lanegan moments because they're flavors that he doesn't always give us in all his songs. So, but I am curious, like what makes him so great in your eyes?
Well, I'm actually glad you brought this up because I was thinking the same thing last night when I was giving the album a listen through. I listened to it twice in a row. So I would not. You're saying, well, I don't get why you. Yeah, I don't necessarily see why you love him so much. Now, Lanigan is not in my top 20 artists by
Oh
any
yeah,
means. And I don't even know all his discography. He is someone where there's kind of two ways I listen to him. I either throw on one of his albums, kind of while I'm doing something, or I kind of pick out the few songs. Not few as in there's not many at all, but I will pick out the certain songs that I just really like that I think are special. Um, and I do agree. I think maybe his weakest point is honestly his lyrics. I think sometimes some lines hit hard, but I also think a lot of it is kind of like you said, a lot of same themes, common imagery. Um, but I would say his biggest appeal to me is just how cool he sounds. Like I do think he is a really great singer. I think he's unique sounding, and he's got the cool factor. There's no other way to really say it. Um, so between that and between like this type of songwriting where yes, it's simple, but it's the musicians overdubs and touch that kind of make it feel real, kind of unique, you know? Like if it was just I will say like on fandom radio, I feel like there's a little more electronic sound as opposed to like, hey, we had like four different people on this track, do overdubs for guitar and stuff. Anyways though. So last night I was, listening to the album and I put the first song on and I'm just like, oh shit, why did I give Rico this album? Like the first track, When Your Number Is Up, is like, I listened to it and I'm like, okay, this is like actually a little more underwhelming than I had remembered.
But you always, like you mentioned, you always, I think, second doubt yourself.
I second guess myself, but I will
Second
say
guess, yeah.
this. By the time I got a couple songs in, I was like, no, yeah, this album is great. But you're right. It is a little different than what I normally listen to, and I enjoy it for reasons that I don't always enjoy other bands and artists for. So yeah, I do think for me, this album's got maybe like, think about half the album has like really strong songs that I would listen to, I would seek out on my own time. But then I would say maybe about half the album is more just kind of vibey stuff that I enjoy listening to during an album, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I stand with him. Now, I am really excited to hear which songs you're liking, which songs you're not liking. But first listen you did of the whole album, what were your thoughts?
So if I'm being honest, on my like first listen, I was underwhelmed. And not even okay, underwhelmed, I don't even think that's the right word. On my first listen, I just kind of really didn't have many thoughts. And then by my second listen, it still wasn't clicking with me, but not because I listened to it and thought, oh, these songs are bad or I just don't like the vibe. Like I was having a disconnect that I haven't had in a while when it comes to like doing an album for this podcast. So I think maybe I just wasn't in the right place of mind. And maybe I think I had just too much going on. And so I kind of gave it like a week off, which I normally don't do. I like to try to kind of like listen to it leading up to this episode like a couple times a week or every other day. And, and it wasn't really until I like started sitting down writing the notes, did like I started having like actual like strong opinions. And I think my issue with this album, the reason why I felt a disconnect at the beginning is because I think the album is too long. And it's really not long and when it comes to like the running length, like the running time's only it's like under an
49
hour.
minutes.
Yeah. So it's like a normal length album, but there's 15 songs. And because a lot of these songs, I feel like a lot of these songs, there's almost like two versions of each song on this album. And because of that, I think the album loses its uniqueness for me. So I've done what I have done before in the past is I have made my own version of the album, which I know some people hate when other people do that because they're like, let the professionals do it. But I don't know. I like making alternative versions. I usually don't listen to the albums that way. Like when I make these alternative versions, it's more of a like, this is where I think the album would have been its best. But when I go listen to the albums, especially because I have a lot of them on vinyl, I still listen to the album the way that the final version of it is, the way
I do
that,
have to say,
the musicians.
I do think you're genuinely good at doing changing checklist orders. I
Yeah.
feel like the ones you have shown before, like they all make sense and they're all pretty functional. I will stand by it. Your reorder of Odyssey and Oracle is amazing. You kind of fixed the album in a way, even though you took off Butcher's Tale, which hurts a little, but I can understand that.
And I don't love the word fix, even though I know what you're getting at, because I know Mark Lanegan fans are, if they're listening to this, they're gonna be like, oh, this album doesn't need fixing. And that wasn't my intent. I just made a version of the album that I think I would enjoy more. So that's really my intent.
And it's really no different than like, let's say an album ends on a song that's hard to listen to or is kind of just felt tacked on. Like you could just take the record off soon or stop listening. Or if you don't like the first track, you could just skip it. It's not that much different than that.
And a lot of people who stream nowadays, they will skip songs. They'll like, I don't like this song, I'm gonna skip it. And I typically don't because I like listening to the albums in their entirety. And the only times I don't is when I listen to a playlist that is has a specific theme that I pick songs specifically for, and that's its own other story. But
The only curse thing you're not allowed to do is shuffle an album.
that is kind of cursed. The only time that's okay is if it's like a
A
new
greatest
art.
hits.
No. Well, yeah, but like if it's, let's say it's one of your favorite bands or artists and they release a new album and you're listening, you listen to it like 5 times all the way through in the span of a couple of days, and you're like, I still want to listen to these songs because they're fresh, but you're like, I kind of want to like get to know them outside of the album. That's okay, I think, if a couple times you listen to it on shuffle.
I have done that too. Yeah, I ain't
Yeah.
gonna lie.
Or like you skip like the singles because those are the couple songs you've heard prior to the album's release, whatever. So
Right.
what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna talk about the songs that I left off and why. Because I
Okay.
made this album 11 songs when it's originally 15.
Okay, so you chopped off 4. Now let's do a fun little game here. I'm gonna guess which ones you chopped off.
Okay.
And I'm gonna go kind of in order. Well, I'm not gonna go in order. Okay. I'm gonna say you chopped off Morning Glory Wine.
I did, and I will say this now and we'll get back to it. I really didn't want to. I
Okay.
had to, and I'll explain why, but I really didn't want to. Because I actually like it actually is one of my more favorites on the album, but I did for a specific reason we'll get into later.
Okay. Um, I'm gonna say you did chop off When Your Number Isn't Up.
I did not.
No, okay, really, okay. Because you had mentioned you think there's kind of like 2 versions of each song on the album, and I'm like, okay, I can see which one you might pair with it. And if I'm right about what you paired it with, you better not have cut the other one off. But we'll see when we get there. All right, you took off. Let me see. You probably took off. Can't Come Down.
Nope.
No.
That one is one I'm not shocked you guessed, but I kept it on.
Okay, so I'm doing terrible. Why don't you just walk me through the songs you took off?
So the first one I took off was Methamphetamine Blues. And I took it off because, like, to me, it's like the second song on the album that has that desert rock feel. And not just because of like the title. I think the first one on the album that kind of has that desert rock feel is Hit the City. But this to me is like the second one. I'm saying I pair
Pretty
those
different
two.
though.
I'm not saying I pair those two together, but I'm saying like meth blues, like, it did surprise me because it had some more of those drum loops, which I was expecting. I was not expecting as much on this album, where on Phantom Radio, it made more sense. Not that it did on this
Right.
album. I'm just shocked he was doing that as early as this album. And it did have some things that I think like fit the song. Like the laughing at the beginning was like unnerving, but it fit the song. That fit the song. The like kind of creepy guitar feedback that fit the song. I thought the bass work was great. I didn't really love the railroad percussion happening throughout the song, but again, it like fit that kind of. I will say this: some of these songs, and I'll get to the other songs when we get to them, have like kind of a Western feel, like a spaghetti Western film. If you know that term, Clint Eastwood movies, and maybe that's where that railroad percussion like kind of reminded me of that.
You know,
Um,
I'm gonna say something that I'm probably not qualified to say, just because I don't know much about this band. But a song like Methamphetamine Blues has that like you feel kind of dirty listening to it, kind of like Nine Inch Nails. And I'm not gonna
so
say this sounds like a Nine Inch Nails song necessarily, because I only really know the singles and the Downward Spiral, which I really love that album. But yeah, I
there
mean, like, go ahead.
there's another song on here. Oh, there's another song on here, and I just found it that I actually think sounds like a Nine Inch Nails song. Again, from someone who barely knows any Nine Inch Nails, but it's not this one. But I can see where you get this from. But there's another song that's on that I think reminds me more of Nine Inch Nails.
Do you like the in Methamphetamine Blues the do risks for your daddy? I'll do it, daddy.
Not really. And like again, this song lyrically, like it's like about drugs, so it's like not the most interesting song lyrically because like between him and Quiz of the Stone Age, we get a lot of that. Again, we get like more female backing vocals, and it's not this one isn't PJ Harvey nor his his ex-wife.
I think it's hilarious that this is like one of the two songs that Nick Oliveri is on as well.
Well, yeah, he's a weird dude. I yeah, so it's like, and I do like the vocal outro. So there's things about the song I like, but it's just one that I wouldn't necessarily go back to again. Like, so I took it off because I think there's other songs that sound similar to it, and it just didn't do a lot for me, if I'm being honest.
I will say it takes me about a minute to really get into the song.
Yeah. The second one I took off, and this might be surprising because I
Please
do
don't.
feel like the album needed some more songs like this, but I just don't think this was it. I took off Sideways in Reverse.
My shepherd, never knowing my witness. Ah, come on now, honey, you're so sick and pretty.
Get the hell out of here, bro.
I think it's
Dude.
a cool song title, by the way. And I think it's like the album's other, like one of the couple songs where it's like the pick me up rocker song. And it kind of reminds, like a guitar riff kind of reminds me of like a harsher, more raw STP song. Not a specific song, but just like, that kind of feel.
Or
So
you know what? Almost more like Velvet Revolver-y, especially with like the vocal
Maybe.
delivery.
Yeah.
But you had mentioned earlier in this episode here that you actually like some of the Mark moments where he sounds a little different than his signature delivery.
But
Like this sounds like kind of raw and grungy.
yeah, but this is the song where, first of all, it has like that kind of chorus backing vocal, like chant thing that I either love it when bands do that or I hate it. And I just don't think him and whoever's singing backup on the song, I don't think they gel well together, their vocals. So like, I didn't love that part of it.
That's an interesting take.
I thought the lyrics were super vague and the song was just really repetitive to me, which is why I didn't love it. And it just felt like one of those songs that like was written just to be a rocker, to be like a more up-tempo song. Because this album doesn't have a ton of up-tempo songs. Like a lot of the songs are a little bit more stripped back, or they build, or they're kind of just the same pace throughout the runtime. And even though I appreciate a song on an album that's heavier and it definitely has more speed, I just think the song was kind of boring besides some of the guitar leads near the end that I did enjoy. I also thought for some reason, I don't like the mix on the song too. I thought it was really flat. Like I feel like there was like no bass in it. Where every other song on the album, I thought the bass was actually mixed really well.
Okay, I think everything you're saying is actually pretty true, pretty fair. It is low calorie, but after Strange Religion, it is like the perfect song to put after Strange Religion.
Maybe, but I moved Strange Religion on the track list. So
okay, but it's still on there. I take it.
Yes, because I'm going down the album, the original track list, and yeah. So let's see. The next song I took off. This is two more. Which one of the next one is the one you mentioned, the one you got right? Morning Glory Wine.
Morning glory wine. Good people don't drink it. So I'm alone, not thinking, please.
I actually really like this song. It kind of starts off slower. The guitar has a really nice tone. I don't know if it's like tremolo, but it has like a lot of reverb in it too. I just really like, or maybe it's like a really like slow like delay or a really.
No, I think
delay.
I think it is tremolo.
It's cool. I like it a lot. It's one of the few songs on the album that kind of has a more happier sounding chord progression, which I enjoyed. And I like the lyrics on this song because it sounds a little bit more intimate. He's like he's seeking someone's love, and like he compares it to a morning wine or morning glory wine. And he wants to get high off of it. And I like that. I also love I pretty much love any song that does a good days of the week lyric.
I was just gonna say, I was like, I don't know if I like that about it or if
no,
I
like
dislike it about that.
If I eventually give you the Ben Harper album that I'm going to give you, there's a song on that album where they do that. And I like it. Like, it's probably been done so many times it should be corny, But I guess like when it happens in a rock song or a song that just isn't like pop, I appreciate it. So I like that. I like how the song builds, even though I think some of the synths on the song are either are a little too annoying or a little too loud in the mix. That's maybe my main complaint on the song. I think the guitar that's panned to the left channel has some great licks. And
Oh, the synths, like the kind of the fluty sounding stuff.
Yeah,
Okay,
not my
that is
favorite.
right. I had to go back to check it out. I get where you're coming from.
And my other complaint is I don't love the ending backing vocals, who I think are credited to that Elaine Johnson guy or we don't know how to pronounce his name.
Yeah, sorry, we're starting. No disrespect, G.
Yeah, I don't love I just don't like the vocals, and because they're not Mark's. But besides that, in the synths, I really like the song. It's kind of a slow burn, and I like the lyrics a lot. I like him comparing love to electrocution. That's also cool in a dark way.
And I think you can go.
Go ahead.
So say, because I think this album was released shortly before he actually got divorced.
Yes.
So it is kind of interesting that electrocution's the word he chooses to compare.
My main issue with the song, not issue, but the reason I didn't include it is because I think the song, the one that I pair it with is Strange Religion. I think both songs are similar in vibes, in lyrics, and the music, and I prefer Strange Religion. And that's the only reason I didn't keep Morning Glory Wine on my version of the album, is because I just like, yeah, I know one's near the beginning of the album ish, and then one's near the end ish on the real album, but there was just, I don't know. I feel like you couldn't have both songs.
That is very fair, because especially because they both do have a similar like kind of synth sound. They both have that like 1, 2, 3, do that like kind of 6/8 feel.
Like arpeggios, happier sounding chords, you know.
See, and if I had to choose between them, I'm actually not sure what I would choose, because I really love those guitar tones on Morning Glory Wine. Like I think they sound, it's just so nice to listen to.
Yeah.
But I do think I might like some of the lyrics more on Strange Religion.
Yeah, and when we get to Strange Religion, I'll talk about why I prefer that song just slightly more.
Now, I gotta say something that it's either gonna make you put Morning Glory Wine back on the album, or maybe ruin the song a little bit. It is, I mean, I didn't check, but it sounds, I believe the progression is identical to Strange Currencies. Like, if you listen to it and hum, I don't know why you're mean to me, like, it fits in perfect.
Well,
which is not a bad thing.
It doesn't make me dislike it. I mean, a lot of fans, when Strange Currency came out, which is an REM song, by the way, I don't know if you mentioned that.
Might be.
A lot of people compared that to the previous album's song, Everybody Hurts. And REM actually, like Mike Mills, I remember an interview was like, and maybe even Michael Stipe, they were like, I don't get why people compare the two songs. They're different progressions. Like, yeah, they're in that same waltz, 6/8, or no, what is it, 6/8?
Yeah, I think it's like 6/8. Yeah.
A time signature, but that's the only the same. I'm like, come on, the feasible songs are very similar. That picked out, dun 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 dun. Like, I'm like, come on, like the chords are very identical. Like, I'm like, they're similar. I prefer Strange Currencies.
I swear I read an interview with either, I think with Peter Buck, that's the guitarist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where he was saying, like, yeah, it's the same progression, but the vocal melody on Strange Currencies was too good. And he's right. But
well, yeah, I mean, Peter Buck is the one member of the band to like not give a fuck, so it doesn't surprise me if he like admitted to it. Where maybe Mike and Michael were like, like, no, both songs deserve to be their own song, So
I'm gonna embarrass myself if I'm wrong, but didn't you say something? Is Peter Buck the guy that you said would like come out in like pajamas and stuff at one point?
No, well, he did that when they had to go to the Grammys because they were nominated.
Oh, okay.
And the rest of the band didn't want to dress up in like tuxedos or whatever. So like Michael Stipe had like a really fancy outfit that he like had made for him or whatever, or picked out, and then like Peter, I think maybe Mike, like came in there dressed up in their pajamas. So
nice.
But anyway, getting back to that song to wrap up Morning Glory Wine. I do really like it. I just felt like if we're trying to trim the fat a little bit on this album, for my taste only, I just think Strange Religion is slightly better.
I respect that.
Yeah. And then the last song that I took off, you might be mad. I actually don't know which songs on here are like your favorites, but
Don't do it.
I took off Head.
Don't know her, one of these mornings. Think I owe her.
Okay.
Head was the song that I thought sounded the most like Nine Inch Nails because it had that
Really?
industrial sounding synth.
Are we thinking of the right song?
Yeah. Let me really quick listen to the beginning of Head. Yeah, that bump 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 bump. Yeah, that.
Okay,
I mean, from the little I know Nine Inch Nails,
it does have like that kind of like methamphetamine blues.
It's not as heavy as like a Nine Inch Nails song, but it has that same texture.
Now, I don't know if I'm qualified to say. I know I'm not qualified to say this either. But you know what artist I think of when I hear Head?
What?
Beck. I don't think Nine Inch Nails at all.
Well, that I will say that's the only part that reminds me of Nine Inch Nails, and I do think Head musically is very interesting because, like, that part starts the song off, but then you get met with like the electric piano, which I think is really cool. But then, like, when it goes into like the chorus, or I don't know if you consider the chorus, it goes into this like almost like funky part with like I believe a synth bass and the drums and the guitar, and it kind of goes back and forth between those two sounds. So it has like very interesting dynamics. And maybe like the funky part is kind of what reminds you of Beck, because I can maybe see Beck doing something like that.
Yeah, like with the keys and stuff, and the vocals aren't sung too aggressive.
And with this being 2004, like Beck is like definitely probably still in his prime.
See, what I like about this song is that it's like it's a rocker, which I think is good. I think Lanegan's good at rockers, but it's a happier sounding one. It's not as dirty.
See, I don't think
methamphetamine blues.
I don't think it's a full-on rocker.
But compared to all the other
some of the other rockers, yes, but like
it's like it's not quite as heavy as Hit the City, but it's the closest one I could compare it to.
But I think the following track, Driving Death Valley Blues, is more of a rocker than Head.
Oh well, yeah.
And I just think Head, like, lyrically just really did nothing for me. Like, maybe the song on the album that does the most or the least for me besides Sideways in Reverse, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Like,
because I always think of Sideways Down from the Frames.
Yeah.
I will say I didn't once even look at the lyrics of Head.
They're just honest. Like, it's like about like this girl he's thinking about that like lost her head, like some girl that's like gone crazy. And like the chorus where he just says like head, oh yeah. Head, like it's just like nothing to me. Like I don't really like the term a porno pony she did ride. Like I don't know. The lyrics just did nothing for me on the song. And even though I again, a song I appreciate more than I like the dynamics of like the funky rock part and then like the electric keyboard part. But it doesn't do much for me. So
I will say this is definitely, as I kind of mentioned earlier, this is one of the ones where I listen to the album kind of, not like in the background, like I'm not listening, but I listen to it and then Head comes up and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. That's nice to, near the end of the album.
Yeah.
Especially picking up after Morning Glory Wine.
Yeah. So those are the ones I left off. So now I'm going to tell you my track list and then we'll get into those songs. So the first song I included on my version of the album is the album's actual opener, When Your Number Isn't Up.
Did you call for the night porter?
And I will say that my track list isn't crazy with moving songs because my issue wasn't like I thought songs were in the wrong order. It was mostly just there's songs that I would leave off on my version to make it more enjoyable for me. And I agree with you that When Your Number Up isn't the most attention-grabbing opener. And usually, at least for me, I prefer my album openers to either be more dynamic or grow a lot more or just to be way more forceful from the very beginning.
Right.
I do think this is an album opener that fits the themes of the album. It starts off with some kind of cool old timey piano, which there's not like a ton of piano on the song. I mean, there on the album. There are moments where there's pianos here and there, but having
There's
that
like a
like
lot of piano credits, but the type where you're like, huh, I wonder what the piano part is in
yeah,
that
it's like
song.
maybe just like a small little keyboard lick. And on this song, it's mostly just that intro, but it's cool. And then you get hit with a more modern sounding production with the instrumentation, like the heavy bass, some other keyboards, a drum machine loop, the faintest guitar arpeggio that I think I've ever heard in my life. Like it's so in the background, you have to actively try to listen to it to actually hear it.
When?
It's throughout the whole song, like right when like the actual song begins, like with the other instrumentation, it's there. You're not going to hear it right now if you're playing it
Oh,
because I'm talking
yeah.
over it, but it's so faint.
Actually, you are right. Yeah.
I don't dislike it, but it's such an kind of odd production choice. So you have
Especially because
that,
there's a lot of space in the song, truthfully.
yeah. And you know when Mark's vocals enter into the mix, you know they're deep and low as always, which I think is just a good way to start the song. Um, the lyrics are kind of vague, but I kind of think they're interesting a little bit. There's a reference to a night porter, which actually I read was a nickname that Kurt Cobain gave him because Mark was really good at scoring drugs for him and his friends. And so it made me believe that like the character in the song is a night porter. And the lyrics gave me like this like feeling of like this song is like, I mean, with the title of the song, When Your Number Isn't Up, is like a reference to when your number's up, which I believe it's like a reference to like it's like a saying like when you're about to die, like when your time
Oh,
is
okay.
up. So like with the song being titled When Your Number Isn't Up makes me think it's like someone who like maybe thinks that they should be dead by now, but they're not, which is something maybe someone who like deals drugs would think. So and there's some moments I really like in the vocals, like when he sings the phrase, but you're still above the ground. I do like that moment. So again, it's not the most like it's not an album.
Captivating.
Yeah, it's not super captivating, and it's not a song that makes you necessarily go like, I really want to hear the rest of this album. But when you after you hear the album all the way through for the first time, you're like, this song makes sense to begin the album. And I actually don't know what would be better because I think if you started the album with Hit the City, the expectations aren't there because then you're expecting the whole album to be this like upbeat, kind of more desert rock sound. And
Right.
it's
Hit the
not.
City is a good second song. It kind of reminds me of what's the second song off Mechanical Bull from Kings of Leon?
Rock City.
Yeah, yeah, it's just like the okay, that's not the best comparison actually, never mind. But, it's like it's like anyways, forget I said that. But I do like now that you kind of mentioned the lyrics more and when your number isn't up. My favorite part is definitely um it's like the whole stanza. No one needs to tell you that there's no use for you here anymore. And where are your friends? They've gone away. It's a different world. They left you to janitor the emptiness. So let's get it on. I don't know. That's my favorite part lyrically.
And I do feel like this song maybe shares maybe similar characters with the song 100 Days slightly. But we'll get to that song in a minute.
Ooh, okay. And
But
by the way, I think you did nail it. That like when I said last night when I listened to it, I was like, I heard it opener and I'm like, why did I give you this? This is underwhelming. But you're right. Once you hear the album, I feel like that song starts to click more.
yeah. Hit the City is the next song, and that's the next song on my version of the album. It, like you said, it's kind of like the perfect number 2 for this album.
Dark descends through the promised land.
My only complaint with this song is like I almost feel like the pace of it, like it's a song that feels like it could have been better if it was slightly faster or if the guitar was playing something more interesting than just like downstrums the whole time. This version, like this song almost sounds like a demo of what could have been a slightly better song. But I still think it's like a quality song. It reminds me of like Queens of the Stone Age a little bit. Like maybe it's more from like their earlier, like maybe from their self-titled album. I
You're
well,
losing me here.
I don't know. I don't listen to the first Queens of the Stone Age album that much, but I don't know. It just
It
reminds me
shows.
of Queens of the Stone Age. I like the bass line, kind of follows the guitar riff and like the verse.
And
Um,
Josh Homme did do the bass and drums on this track.
yeah, well, that's why it reminds me of Queens of the Stone Age.
Well, you commented on the bass part being sick.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, I didn't say sick. I just said I like
Damn.
it. I just said I
All
like
right.
that it
We're
follows
beefing now.
you have some organs kind of up in front in the mix, which I think were interesting. I also read that this was like his first kind of somewhat big hit in air quotes when it comes to like a solo career. This is also the first song on the album that features vocals from PJ Harvey. She's kind of like singing backup almost throughout the whole song.
But it's kind of like a co-lead vocal. The
It
interplay is
is,
really
yeah.
nice.
That's why I said like throughout the whole song. So it's not just like a section. It's like, yeah. Um, Definitely her other song on this album that she's featured on is more of a, I would say, a duet than this song. This one is, like you said, almost like co-lead.
Yeah, that's
Her
fair.
voice fits Mark's voice well. Not as well, I think, as in the other PJ Harvey song we'll get to here in a minute, but it works well in this song.
Because hers are actually quite distorted in this track.
Yeah.
Which I know you're not a big fan of vocal distortion.
We'll get
Which
to that.
there is a... Okay.
Yeah, we'll get to that on whatever song, because there definitely is a song where Mark's voice has the vocal distortion that I don't love. But I didn't mind it with hers for some reason. Maybe because it's more of a background kind of, but lyrics didn't do a ton for me, although like it has interesting visuals like acid baths and Babylon burning from the inside out and tripping on a hollow soul. I don't know if like sometimes when they sing the title of the song "Hit the City," I almost feel like they're saying "hate the city," and the way he
Really?
describes it, it sounds like he would hate the city, but maybe because the character of the song, like kind of a lot of the characters that he sings about kind of all feel the same, like they're these like kind of like low life people, like maybe he likes the city because it fits his vibe. I don't know. I feel like you have to make a lot of assumptions when you take his lyrics into consideration, which is maybe why I have sometimes an issue with them. But yeah, I just think if the song picked up more in tempo or if it has slightly more dynamics, I would enjoy it more. But it's a solid second album track.
You know, I think the most fair thing you said is maybe it could be a little faster. 'Cause it is a tame tempo. I really like it. This is I think this album's got about 4 songs, like maybe like 5 songs that I really like and stand out to me, and this is definitely one of them. I love his voice with PJ Harvey. It's fantastic. Um, you are right. The instrumentation's a little bit bland, maybe compared to some of the other songs, but it does sound good. It hits hard. I love the almost comical lead guitar that comes in. I just had to track down who plays it. And it's some guy named Mike Johnson, who I guess at one point was the bass player in Dinosaur Jr. But it's like such a little studential lick. Like I was like, did Mark play that himself or something? Like, um,
Well, almost every lead guitar part that sounds kind of off or weird, I just assume was Josh, to be honest.
no, he actually doesn't do that much guitar as you may think. For him being, like a good guitarist. I think he does. Yeah, he does like maybe like 3 or 4 songs. But yeah, I like this one. Yeah, I guess lyrics aren't the strongest, but they're not bad.
Now, the next song on the album, which is the next song on my track list, Wedding Blues, I do think has Wedding Blues, Wedding
Wedding
dress.
Dress.
Sorry.
And burn like there's no more tomorrows. Will you walk with me on?
I like combine meth blues with it. Wedding Dress, I think, has actually much better lyrics, and also for sure has the Josh lead, I believe. I swear I looked it up,
Yes.
and it has that wah effect, very Josh Homme on Wedding Dress. Another song that when it started off, I wasn't expecting to love it because it had another drum loop. It kind of seemed like one of the slow kind of prodding songs where it's just kind of like goes on and on. but it's really not. Like, the more I listened to it, the more I enjoyed it. It has maybe a synth bass I wrote. Like, it had a very deep sounding bass sound. Has kind of long chord changes, which is interesting. Like, it kind of again, that's why I called it like slow and prodding, because it like kind of takes forever to get through the chord changes. But I really enjoyed the lyrics. Like, he's asking, I believe, like a future partner, basically if like they'll take care of him. And all the lyrics kind of almost sound like they could be wedding vows, just like maybe in, you know, more in a question form, which I think maybe fits with the song title about wedding dress. Like, it's almost, I feel like he's asking someone like, will you be my partner and through sickness and health and, all that jazz. So I actually really dug the lyrics. You have more female backing vocals, but this time it's from someone named Wendy Ray Fowler.
I love that, like, this whole time as you talk about each song, I'm just like looking at the credits, trying to track down who did what as you speak each part. Yeah.
I like the major chord changes that happen throughout the song. And I do think the melodies, especially during because the chorus is just mostly like bars, like him and this lady, Wendy, singing bars. But I really like the melody, and just, it actually kind of sounds pretty.
It's kind of an unexpected melody when they do the bars. Like,
That's
it
why I
has a
like
different flavor than what the chord progressions would kind of.
But I also think it's because I wasn't expecting that chord change in the chorus too. I kind of thought this would be a song where it stays the same through the whole time. Again, we talked about the Josh Homme solo with the wah. Sounds really nice. And yeah, like, I really didn't expect to like it on the first 20 seconds, but by the end I was sold. I like the lyric, "We got buried in a fever," which I guess is a reference to a Johnny Cash and June Carter song called Jackson, where they sing "We got married in a fever."
Is this one not also "We Got Married in a Fever"?
No, "We got buried."
Oh, Spotify's telling me different.
Well, let me double check, because I was using Genius, and Genius told me, let me double check.
Sounds like "Married" to me, but
It's this. Does they only sing that once or twice in the song? Because
I think it just says it once. I think
I don't
near
know.
the end.
On Genius, it says the coda they sing "We got buried."
Interesting.
Either way, if it is married, then then it's for sure has to be a reference to the Johnny Cash song. Which, either way, that the lyric doesn't, that one small word doesn't change the fact that I think it's a cool reference. And again, I think leads me to the fact that this is like a song where he's like asking someone to marry him, which I think
I do like the ending of that line too. "We got married in a fever, now you love me."
yeah. So yeah, I think, and then the song has like kind of a nice, cool fade out, which not a lot of the songs on this album do. So yeah, I think the song has a lot of interesting aspects, and yeah, it's a song where on that first two listens of the album where I was disconnected, I was not connecting with the song. But then when I sat down to take notes, I was like, yeah, this song has a lot of aspects that I really enjoy, and it made my final checklist.
Like that's the thing for me with most Lanegan kind of tracks like this. Like, it takes me a minute or two to, like, when I'm listening to the song, to get into it. But by the time I'm done with it, I'm like, oh, that was actually really enjoyable.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So first three songs on the album you have kept the same.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna chop off Methamphetamine Blues.
Yeah. But then I'm gonna keep 100 Days where it's at. 100 Days is probably my favorite song on the album.
It was mine when I first heard the album too.
There is no morphine, I'm only sleeping. There is no crime to dream.
I mean, this one is, it feels like the most, like, this is what I thought the whole album would sound like. And to a degree, maybe there's a lot of songs on the album that has similar vibes, but I mean, the song has like haunting guitar chords that are like pretty and dark at the same time. Mark's vocals are a little lighter here, and they actually sound like, I keep using the word pretty, but that to me is like the perfect word when you're trying to say the opposite of a Mark song. Not because his voice isn't pretty, but like when I hear his voice in his music, it's on the darker side. And I don't always associate dark with pretty, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I get you.
I love when the bass and drums and synth kick in. They're extremely smooth, the production and just how tight they're playing. I love how like the whole song just gets extremely smooth during the chorus part, especially with the melody. And I believe that's Josh singing the harmony on the
No,
chorus.
it's not. I used
It's
to think
not?
I think that every time because he does. I think the drums and the bass on the song. Yeah, but no, it's actually Chris Goss.
Oh well, he sounds a lot like Josh on the song.
Yeah, it sounds like Josh when he does like Mosquito Song when he tries to do that like kind of faux voice.
Yeah. Well, it sounds great. I love the harmonies on the song, on the chorus. And I again, I like the lyrics. This song, like, I almost like take the character from the album opener when your number isn't up and put him on like an island where like the song gives me vibes of like this not deserted island, but like this island or like a town that's like on an island, like a remote island. And like, because he sings like it takes 100 days for a ship to come in. Because he keeps the line he repeats a lot is 1 day a ship comes in. But
Mhm.
at some point he says it takes 100 days, which is where the song title comes from. And it makes me like think of like what does the ship bring in every 100 days when it comes in? Like it's bringing opportunities. Is it bringing like drugs? Is it bringing food? Is it bringing like what is it bringing? You know. So I like that the song kind of has some mysteriousness to it. I like the repeating title, "One Day a Ship Comes In." I like the way he sings it. I like the lyric, like a, where he sings "like a long season of rain." Um, and yeah, I think like the chorus is very melodic, which is why I think I like the song so much. It's just it sets a mood, it sets a vibe, and yeah, it's I didn't think it was gonna be my favorite because I'm like maybe this is almost too typical when it comes to a Mark song, but it has a lot of dynamics and it has a lot of small details that I feel like aren't that isn't in like the opening track or isn't in a song like you know Sideways and Reverse or Methamphetamine Blues. So yeah, I mean I really like 100 Days.
I really like it because I think it just kind of does everything perfectly. So yeah, the lyrics are, we talk about that real quick. To me, they are quite vague, mysterious. Like I don't really know exactly what everything means. Like I don't feel confident with my interpretation of it. But to me, I just find it like kind of, especially now that you mentioned when your number isn't up. Someone that's basically kind of waiting to die, you know, one day a ship comes in, like I feel like that's him going to be taken away. Um, it sounds like so when he says, "I'd stop to talk to the girls who work this street, but I got business farther down. Like one long season of rain, I'll remain thinking of you." So it kind of sounds like he's kind of like taking his time, stalling, knowing that it's going to come to an end for him. Um, so I don't know. I've kind of thought about it more like that. I think I'm not sure if they're actually synths on the song, but like I feel like
I
the
think there is, yeah.
like the synths and stuff, they're more they're a little more subtle this time around, but they do have a nice swell effect to fill out the song. I think the lead guitar is pretty much perfect. It's real simple and maybe a little studential at times, but I think it's just I don't know. It's quite melodic. It interplays with the bass really well. When I saw this song live, it was awesome. It was really cool.
I was
Um,
gonna ask you at the very end of the episode if you saw any of these songs live in Phantom Radio, because I don't know if I asked you that, because we might have mentioned on the last Mark episode that you did see him live, but I don't know if we talked about some of the songs you heard. So I'm glad you brought that up.
yeah, I was a bit younger. I don't remember it as well as I hope as I really as I wish I did, but I do remember they played this song because it was my favorite. And then they did like Harvest Home, Floor of the Ocean. They did some of the because I think that was the Phantom Radio tour, so they did some
Tour,
of
yeah,
those
that makes
songs.
sense.
Yeah, but no, I'm glad you like it. It was also my first favorite, and good shit.
So I'm still keeping the track list the same because surprisingly not, I did include Bombed on my track list and I kept it in the same order.
Hanging in the vine, so high you cannot see.
The reason I included this is one that you could take off the album, and maybe no one would really care because it's like, I believe
Damn.
well, because it's like the shortest song on the album. It's like the one song where it's literally just him, a guitar, and then his vocals, and then his ex-wife's vocals. Although at the time it was his then wife. So there's like no other really guests besides his wife. But I think it's important for a couple of reasons. One, it's like, if it's so short, why take it off? It's not taking up that much track list time, running time. Two, you don't really have another song where it's just like one instrument the whole time. So I think that's cool. Three, this is where the song or the album gets its title from, because he sings "I Stretch Like Bubblegum," which I think is a cool lyric. And
Right.
I'm always in favor of an artist calling their album after a lyric, a set of lyrics that is not the title of a song on the album. So I like that. This is kind of where, like, I also feel like you get a little bit of that spaghetti Western feel to it. A lot more subtle in this song because it's just a guitar, but his playing kind of gives me that Western vibe.
Just without all the reverb.
Yeah, for sure. And then, like, the story of the song is kind of interesting. Like, he came up with the song and wrote it and recorded it really quick. And then he asked his wife at the time, like, to sing on it. And she had never heard the song before. So she just had to kind of like follow his melody when it came to the vocals. And then she was like mad at him because he's like, "That's the take. We're not doing it anymore." And she wanted another take. So it's kind of like a funny, like, little story. And, even though I don't know exactly what the song means, I think it has a lot of cool lines besides the bubblegum lyric. I like the lyric. Well, the whole lyric is, "I stretched like a bubblegum and took too long and look too long at the morning sun." And I also really like the lyric, "Because you're a fire escape," which I like that because it's a little bit play on words. Like, he's telling someone you're a fire, but then he calls them a fire escape. So it's like, did he pause the first time and intentionally not give us the rest of the lyric? Or was that like just, the phrasing of it where he wanted the second part of that to have the full fire escape, the full part of the word? Either way, I think it's cool. And yeah, I mean, it's such a short song that it's like, why it sounds very pleasant. There's no need to take it off. Like, it's not the most important song on the album, but I think it has enough cool lyrics, and I think it's unique enough to belong on the album.
Yeah, it's definitely, to me, this is like the way better version of this lullaby from Queens of the Stone Age, Lullabies to Paralyze.
Oh, I don't know if I would say it's like way better.
I don't know. I mean, like, this lullaby is not bad, but like I actually really like Bombed. I think the lyrics are really cool, like you said. Like, maybe they're a little more, they're not so objective. I really like the line you said, but I also like, "Now my mind must go on holiday, torn from its hook, a broken Valentine." Um, I don't know. I think it's really endearing hearing him and his then wife at the time sing it together. Especially too, because Mark sings it like, he sings it like soft, but really steady, really sturdy and strong. And then, like, because she's like quite literally following him, I don't know. It's just kind of it's really interesting. It's really interesting the way it sounds, and I enjoy it. And um, yeah, yeah.
No, yeah, like I said, I do dig the song.
I think you covered it really well, so I don't need to say the same thing.
Now, this is where my track list really starts to vary because, as you may, so the next song on the album is "Strange Religion." I move that later on in the album, and then of course you might remember I take off "Sideways in Reverse." I also move "Come to Me." So the next song on my track list is Like Little Willie John.
She never knew how much I loved her. She never knew how much I cared. I thought I'd get back.
That's the one. Okay, I'm glad you did move Strange Religion, because 100 Days into Bombed into Strange Religion's a little bit slow.
Yeah.
But that's the one?
So I will say it's not perfect because I feel like there should be a more important song after Bombed, but I think you needed the energy to come up. And I think Like Little Willie John is a good follow-up in the sense that like it kind of starts off. Well, first of all, it's a really interesting song because I didn't know who Little Willie John was, so of course I had to do my research.
Is he a real person?
He's a real person. He was
Shed the light.
He was an R&B singer from the 50s and 60s. He had like a decent career, but then like I think he had like some drug issues as he went on in his life, and eventually he went to jail because he killed a person in Seattle.
Oh shit!
And then he died while he was in his 30s in Walla Walla.
All right, well,
so
that hits close to home.
He had like a kind of tragic life, and I feel like Mark wrote him in the song because either one, he was fascinated by life, or two, maybe he saw a little of himself in Little Willie John, in the sense that like it always feels like Mark thought he was going to die way sooner than he did. And he did still die too young for sure. But he like died too, like, I think he died from a disease he had, which I think maybe was brought on by COVID. So like he didn't die, I don't think, in the way that he thought he was going to. But I don't know if he like, obviously they both were musicians. So I don't know if like, again, he was comparing himself to Little Willie John. But, so the fact that the song 2 starts with "There's Nothing I Could Do" also, I feel like sets the tone of the song. But I like how like the song starts off with like that, acoustic guitar. But then like halfway through the song, you get this awesome electric guitar doing, again, it has that kind of Western tone, but the guitar starts doing this like kind of cool, like picking phrasing. Well, the acoustic guitar does. Then the electric guitar comes in and it does these really cool, just like picking patterns that I love. I love the melody that is playing. And then the song like starts to kind of build and build, and it kind of has more of a kind of like a flow to it where you're like kind of nodding your head while you're listening to it.
Me right now as we speak.
Yeah, his vocals I feel like are more passionate on the song than other songs on the album. And I like some of the lyrics, like when he sings, "I dropped like a satellite." And I also like when he says the word "goddamn." One, because it's one of my favorite swear words, but two, he just sounds cool when he says it. And it's just, again, it's kind of like Wedding Dress, where when the song started, I was not anticipating liking it as much as when the song ended. And I just think tracklist wise, it is not the fastest song, but it's more upbeat than Bombed and then 100 Days. So I feel like it kind of sets the album back up to somewhat of a upbeat feel.
Yeah. I will say this is definitely like one of those songs where when I hear like the first 30 seconds, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. Like a bluesy vocal over like kind of happy-ish acoustic guitar. I'm like, nah, count me out, dude. But yeah, by the time it starts to pick up, the acoustic gets like louder. And it sounds kind of faster than it maybe is, just because of the all downstrokes acoustic chords paired with that boom dim boom dim on the electric, which actually is pretty similar to "God Is on the Radio" from Queens of the Stone Age.
Yeah, it has that, like when Josh Homme talks about like his guitar playing was influenced by like polka music.
I mean, okay, yeah, I could maybe see that. I do agree. Like, even though I'm like, okay, bluesy vocal, he does sound damn good on this track. Yeah, I love the way he says "satellite." The "goddamn's" fun. I also like when he says, "Now who's gonna grieve?" That sounds cool. Interesting that there's no drums on this track for an album that has a lot of like drum machine stuff going on. There's no drums on it, which, interestingly enough, if you put this right after Bombed, that's 2 songs in a row without drums.
But this one, because it has that upbeatness in the guitar strumming, I feel like that's what keeps the energy up.
And to be fair, Bomb's only like a minute long without drums.
And there's like a synth bass happening too in like Little Willie John 2, where I think gives it its energy. So, now, what you might not like is that the song I put after like Little Willie John is "Come to Me."
Oh, weeping willow, coughing up my heart.
which I know kind of brings the album down again because I think it also doesn't have drums, or maybe I might be wrong on
Yeah,
that.
it's got drums. It's just
It's a slower song for sure,
yeah.
but it's the other PJ Harvey song, and I actually think I like it more than Hit the City. I think that her vocals, like, it's more of a duet in the song, which I really appreciate. I really like the haunting guitar intro with the acoustic guitar, then the electric guitar. Again, gives me a little Western vibes. But like the little guitar leads that happen throughout the whole song reminds me a little bit of Radiohead. Like it gives me like
Okay.
vibes of like No Surprises.
I knew you were gonna say that one.
Yeah. So okay, I
Once you
must.
said Radiohead.
Yeah, and which I like obviously because I love OK Computer. And I really like the lyrics on the song because I have a very clear vision of what I imagine. I imagine this is a song that Mark is singing maybe through a character, maybe as himself, where he's in a really dark place, and I feel like he's seeing this person, PJ Harvey's character. He's seeing this person in a image of like a mirage, and he's like calling to her to come and save him from this dark place that he's in. Because you do have like the lyrics like has God seen my shadow, which I think is a really cool line, but it's like really dark, you know?
Which that is actually what he named his like greatest hits after, or I think he may have
Oh, that's
called it like
cool.
an anthology. It has
That's
God
cool.
seen my shadow.
But yeah, I mean, like, you know, it's got lyrics where it's like, you know, after that they both sing and keep us apart. He talks about trying to climb and he's really far down and only a fire can wake him. And, you know, just the phrase come to me, the title of the song too, indicates that he wants this person to come to him. So yeah, I like that the song has this kind of this eeriness to it and some of the music and the vocals and the lyrics. But I don't know, it keeps my attention even though it's it's a slower song and it's maybe more, you know, keen to like when your number isn't up. But again, it's more interesting to me than a song like Methamphetamine Blues or Sideways in Reverse or Head, you know? Like even though I like Head because it's interesting, I think this song just keeps my attention more and it makes me want to come back to it because of the lyrics and the really cool back and forth with the vocals.
Yeah, I think this is my favorite off the album.
So then why did you give me that face when you just didn't like the placement of it after like
Yeah, because you go from Bombed, which is like the 1 minute slow little interlude, no
but
drums.
they all have something well, you did say there's drums on Come to Me, but
I mean, Come to Me has a kick and a snare. I don't think it has any cymbals.
yeah, so it's very minimalistic drums.
Yeah, okay, but so Come to Me, I pretty much agree with everything you said. I think much
Wait, hold on, I have one more thing to say, which you might not agree with me. At the end, there's some
I don't know if I want to hear it.
There's some synths that kind of remind me of something you would hear on the Napoleon Dynamite soundtrack. Okay, continue. Tony's got to go now listen to it to decide if I'm out of
like
pocket.
when the song ends.
Like near the song, the end.
There's synths that
Oh no, not near the end. They happen
like in the chorus.
Now I'm trying to find them too. Hold on. Now I can't find them. Maybe I meant it for another song.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a little bit of sense in like the in the chorus.
Like around 109. Or it's like really like, wow, wow. They're kind of farty a little. They remind me of Napoleon Dynamite.
I haven't seen Napoleon Dynamite in a while, but it doesn't ring a bell. So on my next watch, because I'm sure I will see it again sometime, I will keep this in mind. I'll have this song pulled up to AB.
But it's a respectable song to pick as your favorite. Like I'm not mad about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like some of Mark's best lyrics. I think my favorite Mark songs are just when there's a bunch of cool lines that if you want, you can piece together, but if you don't want to piece together, they still sound cool. Um, I think the vocal duet is one of my favorite duets I've heard. I like how the vocals are kind of like off sync at times, how they come together. I like that they're both doing kind of like a mysterious approach. Um, it's just done really well. The instrumentation, yeah, it's a cool vibe. Much like 100 Days, it's like every single lick and note is pretty much done perfectly. Like they're all little melodies you can follow really well. Production sounds great. Um, yeah, yeah, dynamic and it's dark but also pretty. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just really like this one. Like this one and 100 Days are my two favorites. And then Hit the City is probably like a number three for me. That's where I'm
Respectable.
at right now. So there is one other song, which I'm sure you can guess by the time by the time we get there, that I would put as like a number four.
Yeah, I think I know which one. Now,
So
the
let's
next,
back this up here. Yeah. So we have You Went Down to Bombed to Like Little Willie John. Now we're at Come to Me. What follows next?
I go to Can't Come Down.
Tell me, little dog, talk some sweet nothings. The river runs deep and cold. Oh, why, buddy?
Okay, I was like, if you don't follow it with Can't Come Down, I don't know what you're doing.
Because this is where I think the album needs more energy. And Can't Come Down to Me, it's a song where if you thought I was going to take it off the album, I respect that because this isn't a song that would typically appeal to me. But it's probably the song on the album that's the most interesting. That it's so interesting that even though I enjoy it as a concept more than a final product, I think it deserves to be on the album because it's a song that like it's chaotic, it's hectic.
Is it the better version of Sideways in Reverse? Is that the one you pair it with?
Yeah, I think that's a fair one to compare it to. It's
This one is better.
because it is more rock. It starts off with that kind of like Nine Inch Nails like keyboard sound, and then like in a fast electric drum kit, but then it turns into like a real drum set. I think the lyrics are basically about someone that's like on either a bad drug trip or like addiction, and that's why they can't come down because they're like really high. And I think like setting the music to this like chaotic, like fast paced song is like the perfect choice for it. And there's like a lot of sound effects during like the middle and the ending that I think are supposed to be disorienting for a specific purpose. And even the song, it has a very sudden ending too. And then I really find it interesting because his vocals on the song are kind of unlike the vocals on the rest of the album. The melodies, like when he sings the words "sweet nothing" and "keep running," it almost doesn't sound like him to me.
Really?
Yeah, to me, like I almost had to double check to make sure that wasn't like someone else singing that part. Like, and I like that about the song. Like, I like that there's moments where he doesn't sound like himself, which again maybe is supposed to fit the character in the song, who's, needing to come back down to reality from either like a bad addiction or a bad drug trip. So I do think it's the most like out there song. And even though I will say I respect it more than I like it, I feel like it needs to be on the album because it's interesting in a good way. And I do think you need one rocker on the album that isn't just the typical bluesy, upbeat desert rock song, because this isn't really either of those.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't really have much to add either. I think the song is kind of, you just have to accept it. Or accept's probably not the right word. You just have to listen to it and take it in. His delivery is kind of the most interesting part of the song, because it's like this song ends Sideways in Reverse. He almost sounds like sick, like he's kind of struggling almost. Like his voice sounds thinner, like more of a demo. And yeah, when he says like those lines, what sweet nothing, come running, like it almost sounds like he's straining in a way, even
That's
though
why
he's
I'm-
not
yeah,
doing
that's why-
something.
He
Yeah,
sounds
which is
different.
cool. Because you hear like such
Yeah.
other like more technically, like polished vocal performances in the album that when you hear it, it's memorable. But
I
yeah, I
agree.
mean, I think it's cool to have on the album, especially once you get kind of a lot of these softer songs prior to it.
So after that, on the normal album version, it would go to um, Morning Glory Wine. This is where I put Strange Religion.
And who might get you to buy some strange religion.
Because to me, it does the same effect. You go from the sudden ending of this chaotic song in Can't Come Down to a more open sounding, happy sounding love song. And I feel like you need a love song after Can't Come Down because you need this character to find some relief. But it's Morning Glory Wine is like a little bit more sad, especially because he's like referring to love as like electrocution and whatnot. Where I think like I don't know how many love songs Mark's written like in his whole career, but I feel like it'd be hard to top Strange Religion, and it's probably my second favorite song on the album because like I feel like out of all the lyrics on this album, it's the lyrics that speak to me the most. Like, I mean, first of all, he kind of starts off the song with like a cool imagery of comparing this person to the light that he sees. And he's thinking about them driving in a Buick Century.
Which mom had one of those.
Was it a Century?
I think so, right?
Oh, I know it was a Buick, but I mean,
it
so
wasn't
not,
a 73, but
well, yeah, I'm so not a car person, I couldn't tell you, but I do like that. Yeah, he's like it's a 73, like the year, and he says like you, which could mean that this person was born in 73, because I definitely don't think he's saying the person is 73 years old. And like, the second verse, he's like, singing about like, gambling because he's got money, and you get those kind of stereotypical like lyrics about cards with like jacks and diamonds and hearts. But like I really like the bridge where he sings about he's almost called it a day so many times, and he hasn't really had he's never really felt this alive until he's had a friend like this person. And this person, he in the third verse he sings like, she's able to look past his scars, and even though she can tell that he's no easy ride, she's still going to be there for him. And like he compares like that's like he says that's some strange religion. And I don't know, I just really like the symbolism here and the metaphors, and finding the person that knows you better than anyone else and really speaks to you. I find that very poetic and relatable to myself. And so just that alone makes me really like this song a lot. Musically, I will say this. It starts off and I'm like, is this Radiohead's Creep? Because I think they sound very similar. I don't know if they're in the same key or they have the same chords, but just like that, kind of the way the guitar's picked out reminds me of Creep a little bit.
get out of here.
And the thing that I don't like about the song, I said hate, but it's not as bad as other songs. He does have that vocal effect on his voice that I don't love, but it's not as grating as it's happened on other songs from other bands. So I look past it. I do really like the arpeggios. I like that happy sounding chord progression. The organs are very fitting. I really like the guitar leads throughout, and they do kind of build. The song does it's a peaceful song, but it does build. I like the panning of the guitars, or the production overall. I like the right cymbal during I think the chorus it is, or maybe the verse. I don't remember what. The only thing I didn't like in the production was the vocal effect, but I liked everything else about the music so much that I looked past it. So yeah, I mean, like this song, I think again, you don't need this song and Morning Glory Wine, so I took that one off, and then I put this one near the end, kind of because I felt like you needed it after a song like Can't Come Down.
This song also does have like 6 credits for like the backup vocals on it. I think this is where the 2 Guns N' Roses people are, Nick
Oh yeah,
Oliveri.
Duff.
Um,
Oh, and you have Troy from Queens of the Stone Age, I think, playing guitar in this song,
and piano, yeah.
which is cool.
And you know what I think is funny is Joey Costello does drums on. This is the one song he does drums on,
Yeah.
and I always think of him as like a fast, like heavy hitter.
Oh yeah,
drummer.
for sure. Whenever I think of him, I think of the opening track off Era.
Turning on the screw.
Yeah, where it begins with the drums, like you know.
Yeah, I was thinking about Misfit Love because that's just one. Where
Oh
he's
yeah,
just
that's
slamming
another,
them.
like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I wish with Strange Religion, I kind of wish it went somewhere a little bit. I get it, that's probably not the point of the song.
But not a lot of these songs
Also-
go somewhere though, which is maybe why it took me a while to connect to it, because there's not like a ton of bridges on the song, or even when these songs build, they don't like 100 Days
Well-
doesn't really go anywhere. When Your Numbers Up doesn't go anywhere.
But there's like
Wedding
more
Dress.
melodies in 100 Days.
But I think this is a song where the lyrics kind of are supposed to speak for the
But
song.
even then, I don't know. Some of the lyrics I want to get more out of than what I am getting. Just curious though, because one line I really don't know how to interpret is, where's it at? Where she's just the kind who might get you to buy some Strange Religion.
I don't know. I feel
do you think that's him like saying that love is like a strange religion?
well, that's how I
in a way?
interpreted it, but it also could just be him describing the type of person that she is, which is like she's someone that is so easy to be around that she could sell you anything.
Right,
And
right.
and him, Strange Religion isn't him specifically saying like she's gonna sell him on the religion that she's a part of, more so that like she can get you to do anything, maybe.
Yeah, it turns out this is a love song to a Scientologist.
Jesus.
Okay,
Yeah, so
okay,
I really like the lyrics. Like, to me, they're like kind of the. I think there's other great lyrics on this album, but like they're the ones that are most relatable to me. Which typically, if a song's relatable lyrically, I'm way more bound to enjoy it. But that's just my own bias.
Right, and so that leaves you, right, with 2 more songs to close the album out.
And I keep it the same because I do think Driving Death Valley Blues is one of the other rockers on the album.
I'm so tired of driving, but here comes the highway. Oh, I go cold turkey. Right with Jesus, so high.
But it's a lot more fun than like Sideways in Reverse. It's more fun than Head. I even think it's more fun than Hit the City. Again, it has to me that classic desert rock sound, and not just because of like the song title, but it definitely leads me to believe like, did he specifically drive Death Valley, and like, does he have a lot of memories attached to it? I think it's actually a driving song. Like the tempo, it's just like a good driving song. I think the Stop Cold Turkey, which is what you used to intro this episode, is funny, and actually was going to be my intro because I forgot that you were doing the intro, so I came up with my own.
I saw I got your approval, looking at you when I
Yeah.
said it and stuff. That is by far my favorite part of the song. It's just so memorable.
And yeah, and
Especially
it's
because the music gets loud when he says that.
and it's just funny to hear him sing it because like he's when you quit cold turkey, it's hard to do, and he sings about not wanting to drive Death Valley anymore, but he's like, I can't go cold turkey. I don't know, it's just funny. And like, yeah, the song fits the vibes of A Sideways in Reverse, but I just think because of the lyrics and because I think I prefer the guitar leads near the end of the song better, I just think it has better energy. And I could be wrong. Is it Josh doing guitar leads near the end? Is he on the song?
Was
Leads?
track 14. No, I don't think so. This is Alan Johannes, who
Oh, okay,
also
well-
did Can't Come Down.
This song has more of that Queens of the Stone Age vibe to me.
It really does, yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say this. I think this song is one of the more interesting production wise. Like, I think they do a really good job of blending like heavy distorted guitars with some synthetic sounds. It's kind of all over the place. It kind of tickles your ears. It's cool. It's a cool song.
Yeah, and this is an album where like if you're looking at a penultimate track, it's like, okay, you can't really do Strange Religion because if you're keeping Out of Nowhere as the last song, you can't really have two back-to-back slower songs, at least in my opinion. So you kind of have to put an upbeat song. And I just feel like because this was like the most fun rock song on the album, you go with this one.
Can I say something a little bit out of pocket?
What's that?
This is the suffragette city of the album.
Well, yeah, I could say I don't think that
Okay.
I don't even think that's out of pocket. I
Okay,
mean,
'cause
Chris might think it's out of pocket, but
I fear because I know Chris and I feel different about some things.
yeah. Well, I don't think he doesn't listen to Queens of the Stone Age, so I doubt he listens to Mark Lanegan, but
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just like a fun rock song. It's like truly energetic.
yeah. And like I said, it feels a little weird to go from that song to Out of Nowhere, but there's a lot of albums like the Bowie one where you go from a fun rock song to the album closer, which is sometimes a slower or more serious song. And I think Out of Nowhere is both of those.
What is the album closer to Ziggy Stardust?
It's Rock and Roll Suicide, right?
Okay, yeah, I can't remember what it was. Yeah,
Which kind of wraps up like the themes of the album.
right.
I don't know where I think it's really cool. It starts off with like really pretty acoustic guitar and electric guitar plucking, and you think the song's gonna like just be this like really pretty outro, but then you get those chords out of nowhere, which I like because I feel like it fits the title of the song. Like that second chord that they play, like it. You know what it reminds me of when I first heard it?
What?
And this might be out of pocket. It reminds me of that samurai game that you love playing on the PS2.
Get out of here. Yeah, it's such a stereotypical chord progression right there. Get out of here. Get out of here.
But do you agree with me?
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah. It reminds me of that. But it's a really cool sound, and I was not expecting it on this album.
Well, see, to me, I hear it more. I hear it less in like the Oriental way. I hear it more in like the Spanish way. You know?
Oh, see, I hear more like a Japanese influence.
Yeah, yeah. To me, this song is like the most like kind of theatrical sounding. Not theatrical, but like movie score sounding.
Yeah, it is cinematic in a way.
They're cinematic,
and that's why I like it, because especially with like the lyrics, because like this song. Oh no, I accidentally closed out of the.
By the way, Bushido Blade is the epic game that Rico is referring to here.
Oh yeah, it's probably good that you brought that up.
Specified.
People were probably like, what the hell are they talking about? The lyrics in Out of Nowhere I really enjoy, because like you don't know what's coming out of nowhere. I mean, he'll sing, someday far from here I'll send a kiss out of nowhere. But like, and then the second verse, like when he's singing like, when suddenly your room is turning cold as nowhere, like, and he's talking about like, a ghost town and a dark skinned Jesus. And like, I don't know. I just like the idea of like, again, it reminds me of a movie where it's like at the end of the movie, like the villain doesn't win, or maybe it's like maybe the villain wins, but then like the protagonist of the film is like, someday in the future, when you're least expecting it, I'm going to come out of nowhere. And like, that's the vibe it gives me. And I think it's cool. It's a little like threatening, but I really like the instrumentation. Besides the chords, I really like how like you do out of nowhere get the drums, the bass, the piano, and it fills out the sound. And again, okay, so even though I think the chords in the beginning give me like that, Japanese kind of sound, I think the guitar specifically, again, remind me of that Western sound. And because of the reverb and the tremolo, it gives me that Jimmy Webb, Glenn Campbell kind of sound with like the guitar solo.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it fits the vibe really. It makes maybe the coolest sounding song on the whole album, I think, for sure.
I will say I kind of wish it was longer, because I would like to. I do like that the drums happen in the middle and they go away by the ending. But when the drums come in, I would like to hear more of that. But yeah, I think it is a really cool sounding song, and I kind of slept on it for a while. I think just because it's at the end of the album. But as I was listening to it last month, which is why I wanted to give it to you and listen to it last night, I was like, okay, yeah, this one is definitely kind of working its way up to be one of my favorites.
It's hard to
And
say
there
top
is like an
5, but
uncertainty to the lyrics. Like it's vague, but I think in general there's a little more of like a. So he says, "Only a dark-skinned Jesus knows why suddenly your room is turning cold." It kind of makes it seem like maybe you don't know why you die or you're taken away.
yeah.
Uh, show me my way through wilderness to someone who's blind. I'll send a kiss. Almost kind of like maybe there's another life, as you mentioned, like the villain coming
Yeah.
back out of nowhere. I don't know, kind of a lot of loose themes, maybe.
No, I agree. And again, it's kind of like with the opening song. Like, I don't think you can end this album another way. So even if I liked the song less, I think I would have still kept it as the last track. But yeah, I mean, that's my track list. It makes this album maybe a little too short with like the runtime. But again, I just like, I compare the songs I left off, I compare to other songs like Meth Blues and Sideways in Reverse to me sound like worse versions of like Hit the City and Driving Death Valley Blues. Um,
I think you have to
Morning.
keep at least Methamphetamine Blues or Head. You got to keep at least one of those, or else
Well,
the
see,
album's a little too soft.
Head is the only one I could see you putting back on the album because I think Head's the most interesting out of those 3 songs. But the lyrics were so disappointing to me with how cool the instrumentation was that I was
You are right. The lyrics are
yeah.
not great.
And even though I really like Morning Glory Wine, I just was like, it's too much like Strange Religion. So yeah, I just think my version, just for me, makes it more enjoyable and slightly better. But overall, looking at the album the way it's intended to be, I still think it's an impressive album. But I think I will agree with you in the sense that this is an album I will put on for more background than other albums. Like, for example, these albums that I've bought that are behind me now that I got experience from the podcast, Incubus Light Grenades, I bought it and I listened to it the other day and I stopped what I was doing to sing along to songs like A Kiss to Send Us Off and Drive and Diamond Makes Coals and songs like that. Did I sing? What was the title?
Diamonds and Coal.
No, it's
Diamond and Coals, right? It's not Diamond Makes Coals.
no, because isn't what's the other one, like Oil and Water? Are they both
Oil and
called
Water.
Blank and Blank? Oh, okay.
I believe
Never
so.
mind.
Yeah,
But
and
still,
that's not even the hook of the song. It's even diamonds start as coals.
okay, that's where I was getting the title from, I think.
Jesus
Anyway,
Christ.
that album and From a Basement and both SCP albums, they're songs where I'll stop and listen to because I really think they're like bangers and bops. This album, that'll happen less. Like if I ever get it on vinyl or when I listen to it again in the future. But I do agree that I think Mark is just one of those artists where I'll never go out of my way to necessarily pull up a song from him or put it on a playlist. But when I just want something to vibe out to when I'm like reading or, playing a video game, like this album is good for that. And I am right now going through and playing on the Switch, the Batman trilogy series. And this album does have songs where it kind of fits that dark vibe of Batman's, what is it called? Arkham Asylum. So, yeah. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. I do think it's more memorable than Phantom Radio.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think if I listen to the album version, I might like Phantom Radio better because I think it sounds more cohesive in a way.
Okay, so yeah, maybe it was good I gave you Phantom Radio first.
But yeah, that sums up my views on the album.
Okay, and that went pretty much what I expected. I thought you were gonna say there's too many songs, which I think is fair. I thought you would still enjoy it though. It seems like the songs you like were ones I kind of expected you to like. I should have realized that Strange Religion would have been like top 3 for you.
Oh yeah, because it's like probably my second favorite.
I knew you were gonna like 100 Days. I feel like that's one of the songs that is hard for someone to not love.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, I'm really glad that you enjoyed it. Yeah.
Now I'm very curious. Next week, we're going to be talking about my album suggestion for this month, which is Spoon's album Ga 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 Ga, and apparently the album title that Tony can never remember because when he types it into Spotify, he always goes like Goo Goo Gaga or something.
Yeah, I think I'm like it's got to be something better than just ga 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 ga. But goo goo gaga is
And even then, you
worse.
still left out a Ga.
Yeah, how many ga's is it? Good lord.
It's 5. I already told you this.
It's
Anyway,
I think it's 6.
it's literally 5.
Oh my god.
Anyway,
That'll be a fun album to
I'm
get
very
through.
curious what Tony's going to think of it because so far his only Spoon album on this podcast we've talked about is Hot Thoughts, which is kind of an outlier in Spoon's catalog, and I think a lot of people would not give that to a person first getting into Spoon. Where Ga 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 Ga, I think, is an album that people would recommend to a first-time listener of the band because it's got more of their classic rock sound, which is why I gave it to Tony. So
Classic rock sound?
no,
Oh,
a rock
they're
sound
classic.
that's classic to them. Yeah,
Okay.
not classic rock. No.
I was like, I'm not trying to give any spoilers, but I have heard
It's
the
not.
album
It's not
and
classic rock. No,
Okay.
it's a classic sound to them that is more rock than pop.
It's their
So-
classic rock sound. Okay.
So that'll be next week. So stay tuned for that. But drop us a comment. Let us know if you enjoy Bubblegum, and if you do, let us know why and what your favorite songs are. And until then, you will be hearing from us soon. So hope you take care. Bye bye.